Hi there, welcome to Pins and Patience. My name is Jeremy. In my previous videos, I was showing you the processes of how to put together the front panels and the rear panels of the Star Trek Nemesis DS9 Officer's Duty Jacket. This video is going to be about patterning and what I've had to do to alter it. Now, the one thing that I'm going to point out here, that this form, we're going to call this form from now on Mike, because Mike is my fellow veteran who's in another province, and I am having to do all of this based on his measurements that he provided me. Thankfully, I did find a measurement sheet, and I was able to actually go through it, and it's very in-depth, so that helps me a great deal. Now, I had made Mike's vest, and the dimensions that you see here for Mike fit really well for his vest. Now, if I'm making the jacket, and I think I've said this before, Mike is going to be wearing a shirt underneath. He's going to be wearing one of the command shirts, or not quite. Well, he is an officer, so he's probably going to want to be an officer in Star Trek, of course. What do you expect? Whistleheads. Anyway, so that being said, I had to build that into my plan. So as it is, Mike can easily wear the vest over here with no problem. Shoulder was good, sides, body was good, with a shirt underneath. Now, when I'm thinking about how I'm going to do this jacket, Mike is going to be wearing those three pieces of clothing, and how am I going to manage that? So in this case, I chose to put some cotton batting around the whole sides here along the, of course, along the middle of the body, coming around here towards the waistline, going up towards the rib cage, and as well up here along the shoulders. And this is going to give me room in the shoulders for the jacket to sit, but also it's going to be able to move a bit freely. Now, I understand that these jackets are to be form-fitting, but on the other side of things, when you start wearing a bunch of bulk, then you're just going to look like you're wrapped in a big black, I don't know, big black cloth wrap, and everything, and every piece of your body contour is going to be on display. And that's not what we want. Here is Mike with the back of his jacket on him. Now, you're probably thinking, well, that's not too bad. You know, you definitely do have some problems here, some problems there, but you know, this looks good, looks even. Well, here's the thing. I cut everything to the double extra large. And you're probably thinking, why would I do that? Well, I cut everything, the back yoke, the side panels, and of course on the front to the double extra large. Now, I had to do some finagling, and here was the thing. I kept the neck hole and the armholes at the size small. And you're probably wondering, Jeremy, why would you do that? Why wouldn't you just make the size medium or the size large? And, well, like I said, Mike is in Ontario, so I can't just bring him in here and say, okay, I'm going to try this large on you. Okay, then I'll make little tiny adjustments. Everything will be good. So to save myself a bunch of agony, I chose to make everything double extra large. And once I get things in place, then I can trim this accordingly. I can measure these out here. I can bring these in, all of these things. You know, and if I need to, I'll be able to cut them down to, say, the size large or the size medium, however it's going to fit. But most importantly, how it's going to drape on the body and rest on the body with the extra padding around it. That's why I chose to do this, so that his neckline is going to, it's not going to choke him, but he's also not going to look like he's wearing a parachute over here. And more importantly, he's not wearing a tuxedo with tails, because Mike is kind of a shorter guy. I will move on to the paper patterns and show you what I did. The pattern pieces I have in front of you here are all labeled. I'm not going to go through them and tell you what each one of them are, but I am going to point out that all of these patterns here, they're all cut to small, medium, large, XL, double XL, and that is for every single pattern. Now I'm going to bring your attention to something important. I'll try to bring it in here. If you take a look right here, and I'll try to bring this into focus. Now, if you notice these gradients, now I took the time to cut all of these gradients out, and the reason why is because, as I said, I don't have Mike here, so I'm not able to do all of these things and adjust them accordingly. So with what I had done, I'd gone through, and as I cut the piece, I'll show you a front yoke. Back at the board, as I brought in the front yoke and I placed it underneath the pattern. Now, as you can see, these gradients here are going to help me as I move along. Now, I have Mike's shoulder measurements, which are important, but what I did to help myself is I drew this part of the neck hole going all the way along, and then as I was cutting it, I just went with the chalk to make this beautiful little extra piece of cloth. Now, on one of my other builds that I was doing, I failed miserably on the neck, and that was my own command shirt. And I had to think about how I was going to be able to either shorten the neck, lengthen the neck. How am I going to do this? So I came up with this idea. Whether it's right or not, I have no idea. Whether or not this is something people who sew regularly and often would do, no idea. But that's what Pins and Patience is about, is me sharing my processes, people helping me to do what's right, or me giving people other ideas. Like I said, we're all here to work together. So as I said, this here, I've kept everything at a size small. And once I figure out, once I have everything else cut, I'll be able to take the appropriate measurements and cut everything down to the appropriate sizes without having to guess and remeasure these, or did I cut enough or did I not? Am I too short? Am I way too do I have way too much? So this was my little workaround, and I think it's pretty cool, and we'll see how things go as we move forward. Now, hopefully you can see this, that I did this process on all of the body panels, the side front, the side back. Of course, I just showed you the front yoke as well as the back yoke. Again, keeping the, I'll bring that into view here. Again, with the back yoke, keeping that curve, not cutting anything, but just drawing that curve all the way out, and then drawing this side all the way out this way until the two meet. And hopefully, and that'll be able to give us that process. Now we'll go back to Mike and we'll take a look at Mike. Mike is now back in the picture, and of course, as you can see, I've got everything marked accordingly. This is my back yoke, just in case I forgot. My 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, of course, 3/8, armhole over here, 3/8, and then of course this going around the back being 0 seam allowance, because this is where a trim would go. We're not going to talk about that in a bit. Now, this is where the neck hole comes into place. Now, this is the small size neck hole with a little bit of an extension going that way. So I'm just going to adjust this so you can get a better look at what I'm talking about. Now that I've got Mike turned in this way, and of course his back yoke is on, I had to adjust the neck seam, as you see here. So, and here's the other side of it, is that, of course, this is his shoulder seam. This is where everything would rest on his shoulders. And that's, of course, the middle of his neck. But take a look over here. You see all this extra fabric that I've got? Now that's what I have to deal with. That's where I have to cut, move things around, and figure out the right way for things. But these are easy. These are easy to manage. No problems here. It's getting the dimensions for me. I mean, who knows what you can do, but for me, it's getting these measurements right. Now, thankfully, as I said, I have Mike's measurements. And for Mike's half shoulder, let me just go into my notes here. Mike's half shoulder length is 5 3/4 of an inch. So with the trusty tape measure, I'm going to put this up into here. Now Mike's shoulder is going to be 5 3/4 of an inch right here. So I've got all this extra fabric, but that's important. That's important so that I can make the proper cuts. And of course, when you cut, you know what? If it's too big, you can always cut some off. Too small, you can't add. So that's where this other process had to come into play, and that's where the notches on the patterns that I had to create, I guess not notches, the cutouts on the patterns I had to create came into play here. That is patterning. That is what I had to deal with to get this thing going, and to try to figure out a way to properly fit this jacket, but more importantly, properly fit this jacket with the ability to have extra room for a shirt, a vest, and then finally a jacket over top, and for him to again not look like it's vacuum sealed against his body. There you have it. If you have any questions, concerns, comments, please leave them. As always, give me a big thumbs up. Heck, even subscribe. I would love that. I love to share my knowledge, but I also want to hear what you have to say. Oh, and I also have a website. If you'd like to take a look at that, it's www.jedward.ca. That's the letter J, EDWARD.ca. Thanks for listening. Bye for now.